I've made $2 million in my coaching business, with the last $500,000 being made by selling without sales calls and by simply sending a simple Notion doc to people in the DMs. Now, I didn't start like this. I started off as the typical bro scaler with sales calls, with lots of outbound DMs, messages, having a sales team. But in this video, I want to explain really to you why you should consider switching to DM selling, if you should actually switch to DM selling, and of course, the first steps and considerations you need to put in place to be able to make the switch if you want to. And so back at the end of 2023, I was at the point of being, around 2.5 years, even 3 years deep into my coaching business, having made over $1 million. I'm very happy with the success I'd had so far with amazing student wins, 4 million plus in terms of student wins. Everything on the surface was extremely good and going very well. However, there are a few challenges and issues that were popping up at the time. Main ones being the amount of sales calls that I was doing was slowly becoming a pain in the ass, basically, and I was starting to get to the point of burnout. And I enjoyed doing sales calls, but there's only so much of something you can do. And when you're taking sales calls and you're doing them pretty much every day, and you're doing 3 or 4 every day, and you do that for 3 years, yeah, it gets draining. And sales calls serve a massive purpose, and they are by far the best and the easiest way to be making sales for your coaching business. But at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, and this is a question I had to ask myself. I was at a crossroads. Where do I want to take this business? Now I've made my first million, making my next million and millions after that. How do I actually want to do that? I was no longer at a point at the end of 2023. I was no longer at a point where I was just trying to make more money. I was having to question myself as to how do I want to make that money and what path am I going to follow? And the path that I was on was a path of, hiring a big team, which I already had, having a sales team, having someone pretend to be you in the DMs, eventually hiring someone to do the sales calls for you, having a lot of coaches on board with you, having a client success team, a marketing team, a video editor, you name it. I had pretty much all of these people. I had around about 6 kind of part-time contractors working with me, and I had a handful of other people that I would pay for kind of one-off projects here and there. And so straight away, just the management of a team is a job in itself, is a business in itself. Having to manage one team member, let alone multiple, 5, 6 or more, that is stressful. At the end of the day, it is. And I had to just ask myself, look, the effort and the time and the stress it's going to take to grow the business from, say, 100K per month to 200 to 300 to 500K per month, and beyond that point, you get to a stage where you have so many people underneath you that you only have, a manager of some kind that you then, connect with, and you can scale it much more. This is why I see some coaches who are doing 500K a month or more, and they don't really work that much because they have good systems dialed in. But the point is, for me, I have never really had the ambition to get my business to that level, so I have really only had the ambition, at least for now, to build a business that gives me over $1 million per year, but more importantly, gives me peace, gives me fulfillment, gives me an ability to be creative, gives me an ability to connect with people and to help people and to have impact. But more importantly, it gives me freedom, right? And freedom is not simply you have, a spare 5 hours a day to do what you want with it. That is part of freedom. But freedom to me is also not having to worry about team members. Are they doing the work? Are they not? Having to actually be able to pay them, having to have this always turned on mindset of, I'm always selling, I'm always working, always doing things. That's not freedom, regardless of how much spare time I have. And so I found myself at the end of 2023 pretty much, I'm going to bed every night and I can't switch off and I can't stop thinking about the business and the sales calls and the team or whatever else it might be. And that's just a decision and a personal preference there that I made, that, okay, in 2024, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to decide I'm going to build my business. I'm going to basically burn everything down and build back by selling only in the DMs, only to inbound leads with no team, no sales team, and reducing my team down to 1 or 2 people. And that's the decision I made. Now, financially, that's not necessarily the best decision to make with any coaching business. But again, my decision wasn't a financial one, it was a personal one. Okay. And so where the finances did take a hit for the first few months of making that transition, eventually now as of right now, I'm back to where I was this time last year, but with no sales calls, with 2 team members rather than 6 or 7, working less than 4 hours a day compared to maybe 6 to 8 hours a day. Um, you know, and it's like it's a complete world away. It's completely different to what it was. And so, should you make the same switch? Now, like I said, if you care about getting to 300, 400, 500K plus per month, then most likely, no, right? Being completely honest, the way you're going to get to those sort of numbers is you're hiring a massive team, you're running ads, you're managing that team, you're still doing sales calls, you're doing things at scales, you have a very sales focused business. If, however, you want a coaching business that makes you millions, but it doesn't cost you your peace, it doesn't cost you your freedom, it doesn't cost you all of your time and your energy, it allows you to be, creative and have fun still, then yes, perhaps you should switch to DM selling. And that doesn't mean that DM selling can't get to those sort of income levels. Of course it can, but there are sacrifices you'd have to make on that path in perhaps time and energy and money to hire certain people and have certain systems to actually help you. And so, should you make a switch? It depends on that, right? It's not a financial decision; it's a personal decision whether you make a switch to DM selling or not. And so, I want to get into now just some of the principles I had to follow and that you would need to follow if you decide to make the switch to DM selling. So if you're not going to switch to DM selling, there's probably no point watching the rest of the video to jump off. If you do want to switch to DM selling at some point, then of course grab your notebook and listen. So principle number 1, or perhaps the first thing you need to remember, is that anyone can do DM selling. Not everyone should. And again, this kind of comes back to the reason why you want to sell in the DMs in the first place. But the reality is anyone can do it, right? Just like sales calls and anything else, anyone can sell in the DMs, but that doesn't mean you should do it. If you are someone who naturally thrives from personal connection, from being on camera, if you're much more, you cater much more towards sales, you enjoy that kind of stuff, then actually perhaps the sales call process in general probably works better for you. If you are more of a CEO, you're more of a entrepreneur, you want to manage people, manage a team, again, then most likely a sales call process, a sales team makes probably the most sense for you in terms of scaling your coaching business to whatever level it might be you're going for. However, if you are someone, again, where you have more of a kind of creative personality, you perhaps started a business not necessarily just to make money, but also because of creative reasons and personal reasons, then perhaps selling in the DMs is going to be more suited to you. And so, like I said, DM selling it's not just a financial decision. You have to decide on, does it fit your personality? Does it fit the way you want to build your business? Does it fit the vision you have for your business? And but more importantly, your lifestyle over the next 2, 5, maybe 10 years even. And so that's the first decision you have to make. If you are not fully committed to DM selling, you are going to struggle because it is hard. Those first few months of making that transition, it is difficult if you don't have, especially if you don't have help, but it is difficult. So you have to fully commit to it in here. Otherwise it's not going to work. And I found that with the sales call process that I was doing last year, I had hit a plateau. I'd hit a plateau of around $75,000 cash months, which had gone up to about 100K in terms of sales months. But I'd hit a plateau and I realized, it wasn't the strategy, wasn't my content, it wasn't my sales call process, it wasn't the quality of leads or anything like that. Quite simply, the reason that I had plateaued was because I was self-sabotaging. Subconsciously, I didn't want to scale beyond 75K per month because what would it mean? It would mean more sales calls. It would mean I have to hire more people, I have to manage more people and have more stress, more things going on, lower profit margin, all of the other things that come with that. And once I realized I was self-sabotaging myself, and actually that's why I wasn't growing, that was the immediate unlock for me. And that's when I then fully committed to the DM process, albeit maybe a bit too quickly. I just made a kind of complete switch, but nonetheless, it was the best thing that I've done for myself, for my life, for my health, for my time, for my freedom, for everything else. It definitely was the best decision I've made so far, I feel, in my business. And so that's kind of principle number 1, is you have to fully believe in it yourself before you make that switch. Principle number 2 is that when you do decide to sell in the DMs, you have to switch your business from being a sales focused business to an offer focused business or a marketing focused business. Now, what do I mean by sales focused? Well, if you're doing sales calls right now, And probably your process looks like this. You post content, you post lead magnets, whatever it might be. And the way you get people to book calls is by you reach out to them, you manually have conversations to nurture people, you run ads to push people along further down your funnel. It's very manual. There's very much kind of a lot of work you have to do there. And you are having mostly conversations to push people from cold to sold, right? So from stranger to DM, DM to a sales call to a client. It's all manual work. It's all kind of face-to-face, one-to-one kind of sales focused work you're having to do. You are literally having to sell to people to get them to buy from you, or at least to move further down your funnel. Now, an offer focused business or marketing focused, can use both terms. It relies more on using your content and other assets and mechanisms to warm people up, to get them pre-sold and to move them down your funnel. So I'll give you an example. Instead of me doing outbound to reach out to, say, a new follower or to reach out to someone who downloads a lead magnet, I no longer do that. Instead, I'll have an offer or an asset that does that for me and moves someone further down that funnel. For example, someone follows me, they download a lead magnet. Let's say that's the first thing they do. Well, they've now gone from stage 1 to stage 2. Now they have that lead magnet. My lead magnet, or maybe an email sequence, might then redirect them to my YouTube channel, right? My YouTube videos, which are kind of like the next step in terms of getting to know me. They're at stage 3. On my YouTube channel, you'll see in the description down below, I have a link to my VSL. My VSL is pretty much one of the last kind of parts of the process before you could chat with me about my program. So that pushes them to stage 4. So I'm making offers, I'm using assets that push people down the funnel and then gets them to reach out to me directly. Now, that is not the most efficient way to scale a business, because for me anyway, last year, half of my income came from outbound leads. Half of my income came from me, or I should say us, my team, reaching out to people and having conversations. And half of it came from inbound. So now I switched it where I'm only getting inbound leads, or inbound clients, I should say, and I'm not doing any outbound. Now that might change at some point, and I'm not saying you have to, if you want to send a DMs, you have to completely stop doing outbound. That's not what I'm saying. You can do whatever you want. But I made a decision for myself not to be doing it, at least for the time being. But that means that my content, my marketing, the offers I'm making, the assets I'm using, they have to create much more leverage for me to move people along that funnel, move people along that process. Hence why I'm now doing probably a bit more YouTube content, because I'm trying to make up for the fact that I'm not doing outbound messaging with longer form content such as YouTube or email, maybe podcasts and other things like that. So that's number 2. Number 3, the identity shift matters much more than the strategy. And a lot of the identity shift really is about becoming, and I hate this kind of topic in general, but it's becoming energetically attractive. So what we mean by that is, again, when you're doing sales calls, you tend to be pushy. Now, not in a bad way, but pushy in a sense of you always follow up, or you follow up multiple times. You push to get a sales call booked, you push to get a reply, you push to get a response. If someone has an objection, you try your best to overcome it. You throw in a discount, you throw in a bonus, you try everything you can to get someone to decide to move forward. You try and get someone to decide on the sales call rather than giving them time to think. You know the drill, right? All things you're probably already doing. And that's, again, it's not to demonize them. That's not bad. That's not wrong. It's a different way of selling. It's a different way of doing things. When you decide to sell in the DMs, you are essentially giving up all sense of control over how you sell, because you no longer have the ability to get someone to decide necessarily on the spot that they need to move forward, right? You are deciding then to change your process from being someone who's very pushing the DMs to just trying to attract people to you with your content. DM sending works best 100% when someone reaches out to you and when someone is already pre-sold 100% on what it is you do and how you help people. And it's very, very difficult to try and sell people, from say 50% to 100%. It's very difficult to do that in the DMs. That's what sales calls do, right? So with sales calls, you can get someone who's maybe 50%, 50-50 on whether they buy from you or not. You can get them onto a sales call. The sales call does the rest of the work for you. With DM selling, someone reaches out to you and they're kind of 50-50 on whether they work with you or not. It is extremely difficult to try and replicate a sales call in the DMs, right? And it's just worth saying, DM selling is not a sales call in the DMs, right? You are not replicating a sales call in the DMs. The point of DM selling is that you spend 5 minutes qualifying someone and then you send them your offer and that's it. You are not trying to sell to them. You're not trying to convince them. You're not trying to do anything. You are simply closing them rather than selling to them. And that's a fundamental difference. And a big part of why that is possible is the identity shift. You want people to feel attracted to you. You want people to feel as though you are not pushy, you are not desperate, you are not just trying to sell them for the sake of it. Because one thing that lacks in the DM process sometimes is the personalization. It's getting to know the person on Zoom, on a call. And so the more pushy you are, the worse it can be, because that lead is thinking, or that prospect's thinking, but how does Harry actually know that much about me when we're just having a few conversations? Why is he pushing so hard? Right. So DM selling, you have to completely shift your identity. You have to become someone who attracts leads rather than you chasing them. You want leads chasing you rather than you chasing them. And a big part of that is becoming energetically attractive. Okay. As much as I hate that term, it's a term I have to use. So that's number 3. The last few here. Number 4, the 3 yeses. For someone to buy from you, and this is sales calls or DMs, they have to say 3 yeses. Yes to you, yes to your mechanisms, yes to your offer. Yes to you simply means that they like you, they trust you, they believe in you, they want to work with you specifically as a person. People buy the coach before they buy the coaching. You've probably heard that before. So that's the first yes. The second yes, it's mechanisms. Mechanisms are the methods, the strategies, the techniques, the formulas, whatever it is that you do, how you help people get the result, that is your mechanisms. And you need to completely sell people on that before they buy from you. People have to believe in your method. They have to believe in the pathway to the goal that you teach before they would ever buy from you. So that's what mechanisms is. And the final one then is your offer. Now, of course, whatever your offer is, whether that's a one-to-one coaching program, it's 90 days, it's 2 years, it's a month, it's a year, whatever it might be, it's group coaching. People need to believe in that offer and its ability to deliver the mechanisms, to deliver the results that you say you can. Now, with sales calls, typically, you don't really need people to be sold that much on mechanisms or even your offer. You just really need them sold on you. And actually, to be fair, not even 100%. Again, this is why sales calls are so powerful, because you can get people completely sold on all 3 on the sales call. With sales calls, you only have to sell the next step. So when someone's in your DMs, you haven't got to sell them on buying from you. You just have to sell them on booking a call with you. And it's much easier to sell someone on booking a call with you than it is to sell someone on buying from you in the DMs, right? And so that's why sales calls are powerful, because you don't have to have these 3 yeses all 100% before someone can buy from you. However, with DM selling, you need to have at least the first 2 100% sold before someone will buy from you in the DMs. That's the difference. And that's why your content, your marketing, the assets you're using are so important, because they do that selling for you. Again, DMs, when you're in the DMs, you're not trying to sell people on you. You're not trying to sell people on the mechanisms. All you simply do is you qualify, you make sure they're a good fit, you send them your offer. And quite frankly, the point is they should be 95% sold to the point where it doesn't really matter what the offer actually is. They want to buy from you. They want to work with you so bad. They don't care if it's for 1 month, for 6 months, for a year, for one-to-one, for group. They don't care. They just want to work with you. That's how powerful it can be when you get the content and marketing right, and how easy it can then be to close people in the DMs when they are coming pre-sold to you. And again, your assets do that for you. Final 2 points. Number 5, ideally, when you're DM selling, you want to try to attract and work with high level clients. And what I mean by high level clients are people who don't need to be convinced of the thing you teach. So again, when you're selling to people, there's a few sales you have to make, a few that I've just mentioned, but also you have to convince people of the thing you teach, right? So for example, let's say you're in the fitness niche, it's the easiest one to always talk about. And let's say you teach CrossFit, right? And you're helping people to lose fat. Well, someone decides they want to lose fat. Great, you can help them. But now that person needs to decide, how am I going to lose fat? Am I going to do CrossFit? Am I going to do a marathon training? Am I going to do some 5x5, strength training or bodybuilding, whatever? They have to decide on the pathway to get to that goal. And you teach CrossFit. They also need to decide who do they want to buy from to teach them that particular thing. Now, typically the sales call process, your content is having to try to convince people that CrossFit is the best way to do it. CrossFit is the best way to lose fat, and that also buying from you specifically is the best way to do it. However, DM selling, ideally, you want to attract people who already believe in CrossFit. They're already convinced that CrossFit is the answer. So all you simply have to do is sell them on one thing, which is you, rather than two things, which is CrossFit and you. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, put it into the comments down below and I can clarify. But believe me, that makes a massive difference when you're not having to try to convince people of actually what it is you teach. So the final principle is you have to recreate a reason why now. Now, when you're on a sales call, it's very easy to do that. You simply say, hey, got an offer. If you decide to move forward next week, it's $1,000. If you move forward today, as a fast action discount, as a way of saying, I appreciate you taking action quickly. We can do it for 500, right? Whatever. It's a very simple way to create a reason why now. Now, in the DMs, it's very hard to do that. In the DMs, when you send someone an offer and we have no reason why now, that's when you get ghosted. That's when people disappear. It's when people think about it for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month, for a year. And it becomes very difficult to get a commitment in that moment when you're sending someone a DM. And that can become very frustrating. So the way that I personally recreate that reason why now, I use a wait list. So for me, I open and close my program practically every single month. And I limit the number of enrollments I will have. I limit the number of students I will take on every single month. And so that way, when people reach out to me, I make it very clear to them, hey, I'm either closed for enrollment or hey, I'm open for enrollment. And I'm only letting in this set number of students this month. Already I have 3 spots taken, 4 spots, whatever it might be. Enrollment closes tomorrow. My enrollment closes in 2 days. And with that frame, I then just create a much clearer reason why people should decide and act now, because if they don't and they wait a day or two, well, then they can't join the program. They have to wait till next month. And again, for the right leads, for pre-sold leads who want to work with you, that's all you need to have. That's all you need to have to help them to make that decision now, sooner rather than later. And this isn't about getting people to rush to say yes. It's simply giving you the clarity on whether someone says yes, no, or yes, but later, right? You need to have that clarity to be able to work properly, to have that freedom of mind, and actually not be thinking too much about, oh, is that person going to join? That person I spoke with last week, these 10 people who didn't give me a response, are they actually interested? You need to know 100%, is someone in or are they out? And this is one way in which you can do it. And so there are other ways, but this is one way and the way that I use and I find very effective. And so they're the principles. So hopefully that was helpful and hopefully gives you a bit of an insight as to, like I said, why I decided to make the switch to DM selling, if you should make the switch to DM selling, and of course, if you do decide to make that switch, what are the first steps? What are sort of the considerations you need to have to actually make that switch and make it a successful switch to DM selling? Otherwise, I appreciate your time watching the video. If you are a coach and you want to learn how to sell in the DMs, you want to be able to scale to 50, 60, 100K months without sales calls, without a massive sales team, that's the type of thing I help with. In the description down below will be a link to another video. And that video just explains a lot more about exactly how I do things, exactly how I help, perhaps how I can help you. Feel free to give that a watch. And if it makes sense, then of course you can reach out to me. And if not, well, you've watched a video that was useful and valuable nonetheless. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day or evening, whatever time it is for you. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video.